everyone, and welcome to the Laura Canfield Show, the Awaken to Happiness Now Global Series. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm so excited about today's topic and today's caller because we have Maureen St.Germain with us for the first time. So it's an extra special call. I'm so excited that she's going to be sharing her wisdom, her teachings, her energy with us, and Maureen's going to be talking to us about waking up in 5D. So I'm excited about that. It's all about 5D lately, right? So what does that mean? And so Maureen's going to give an explanation of what it means to be in 5D, specific steps that one can proactively take to be in 5D. And we'll also learn how eliminating certain words from our vocabulary can assist us in becoming 5D. And we'll also learn to recognize the 3D anchors that hold us in 5D. So I'm so excited about that, because this is something that we haven't really talked about very much. I think we've talked about it on the periphery, but we're going to go really deep today. So for those of you who don't know Maureen St.Germain is the practical mystic, is an author and teacher with workshops and clients worldwide. Her primary subject area is in personal development and spiritual awakening. She's considered a modern-day mystic, and Maureen has taught throughout Europe, Canada, USA, Egypt, Taiwan, China, Australia, Scotland, and Japan. So she is an internationally recognized, highly acclaimed transformational teacher, author, and intuitive. And her live presentations are insightful, compassionate, intuitive, and funny. Maureen is the author of 3 Amazon bestsellers, translated into Russian, Italian, and Chinese. Founder of Akashic Records International, she trains others to become certified guides who read for others. She's an author, musician, and producer of over 15 guided meditation CDs and DVDs. And Maureen is a prolific writer, talented musician, and direct channel to source. And her company created Arrow Mandalas for healing emotional wounds. She co-founded Emerging Spirituality Productions, a communications company based on telling stories related to spirituality, compassion, healing, and especially in developing a second spiritual family. So I'm so excited to be talking to Maureen today, and I'm so glad that we are all here together. And just so you all know, I am right now in just outside Boston, Norfolk. I don't have a Boston accent. So we might hear some weird noises because I'm at my cousin's house, and her husband is building a sunroom onto the house. So they're busy working outside, so I tried to find the quietest space in the house. So if you do hear some noise, just bear with us. But it's great to be here in the U.S. Like you all know, I'm visiting Canada in the U.S. right now, so I'm so glad to be here with all of you. All right, so I invite you all to open up your hearts, center in your heart space for a moment, and just join me in welcoming Maureen to the show. So Maureen, welcome.
Thank you. And going right along with your opening invocation, I want to encourage all of you to take another minute as you go into your heart and think of some little one, an infant or a pet that you have held in your arms, and imagine you're saying, I love you, to that little one, because it'll help you open your heart. And as you say that phrase 3 times in your thought, what you may notice is that the feeling in your chest changes. And now we're going to create a direct channel from that all the way up to the higher self, which is at the portal of the 8th chakra, and invite the higher self to join us where we are and watch how the energy is so amazing, for not only for this call, but for yourself and for the rest of your day. So awesome to be here, awesome to be part of this program. It's a real treat to work with people at this level, because my heart's desire is to assist people with their ascension work and to help them understand that we're all on this mission together. And, we all benefit from helping each other, and we get that even more clearly as we pursue and move along in this process. So thank you for having me.
Oh, beautiful. And before we get started going deep into the call, I'm just going to invite all of you to, if you have questions for Maureen about this subject especially, or I don't know, let's see what kind of questions come up for you, but you can hit star 2 to raise your hand, or you can submit a question on the Q&A. So we'll try and get to as many as we can today. So today, Maureen, because it's your first time, can you just share a little bit about your story, how you became known as a mystic, right? The practical mystic. And why did you start to work in this area of spiritual awakening and the Akashic records and so on?
Well, it was over 20 years ago. A woman was writing a book about famous Wisconsin mystics, and she put me in that book. And then someone who knew me and knew my work said, well, you're a mystic. And so now I'm hearing it twice, and I'm asking the universe, is that what I am? Is that who I am? And it was confirmed. And then the same thing happened when I began to teach in a much bigger way all over the U.S., Canada, and Europe, is that people would say, well, you're channeling all the time. You're a direct channel to Source. And again, I went back. And one of the reasons why I also rely on someone else saying it back to me is because I have been around so many teachers who were, so puffed up and so self-affirming that you kind of wondered, is it their ego or is it real? Mm-hmm. So I always waited and hung back with that information until someone said it to me. And then I would say, okay, I get it. So when I originally started, as a child, I was very spiritual, very interested in spiritual things. I grew up Catholic. From the time I was a teenager, I would ride my bike to go to Mass before working on the farm. So I would go to a very early Mass and then come home and work all day on the farm. And in high school, I thought maybe I would become a nun, but then I discovered boys, and so that didn't happen. And then I got married and had a family, and the whole time that I was, raising my children, I studied this work, and I had study groups that I led, but it was kind of in the closet because I was working in the corporate world and very successful and very visible. I was in positions where people all over the community would know me, and so I would wait to have my name out there in a very low-key way, and so people would study with me, but I wasn't widely known. And then one day I went to the altar and I said to El Moria, the Ascended Master that I worked with closely for most of that time, and said, all right, I'm ready to walk away from the corporate world if that's what I'm supposed to do. I didn't think that was what I was supposed to do. I thought I was supposed to continue to, work behind the scenes and stay in my corporate job, but maybe I'm supposed to let go. And 3 weeks later, I was given a pink slip, a handsome check, and my workshops took off from there. And I had been teaching all over the world already, but this, pushed me into the front. So I had already been advertising nationally and those kinds of things because I had a good paycheck to help cover it. But now I'm like, okay, this is it. So I have always been devoted to spiritual things and spirituality, and I've always been plugged in and have had good information coming in. But at every turn, I would have something happen that would take me up another level and another level and another level. And a few years ago, I was given a very clear message that I was being given a permanent guide and that I was being given access to a dimension that had been closed to humanity for eons. And later I asked, well, am I the only one that has access? And I was told, no, but you will be a way shower. And so that is the work of the Akashic Records. And that has dovetailed very nicely with the other work that I was doing, which is the original Merkaba, the 17-breath Merkaba meditation, which although I no longer teach that work, I have a DVD that anyone can get, if they want it. And then I also taught during that whole time period a body of knowledge called Be a Genie. And that work helps people manifest using sacred geometry. And it's a very powerful, amazing tool that I can attest to. I lived that work, and I'm a living testament to it. So that's where it all started. And along the way, I had 4 children, and I put 3 of them through college. So I used that manifestation stuff to make the money to make sure that there was enough to cover all that. And I manifested my beloved, and he's a wonderful partner for me. And I think we celebrated 5 years, but we were together for a couple years before that. So my history is just like everybody else. I was married for 25 years, and that ended in divorce. And initially it was extraordinarily painful, like anyone can imagine when you're together that long with someone. And, I was alone for a number of years. And so practically every life experience that someone could experience, I've been through. I dealt with my when my husband first split, he decided to file bankruptcy, for example, and named me as one of his creditors. And what that did is gave me a choice. And some people say, well, I had to file bankruptcy. And you never have to do anything. It's always a choice. And so I was given the opportunity to either pay our family debt by myself instead of splitting it like most people do when they break up, or filing bankruptcy with him. So I chose to pay the family debt, and it took me 7 years. Now, I don't think today people should do that. But I chose it because I wanted to establish that I was a manifester and that I didn't need to file bankruptcy to get out from under. But I do believe that it is a viable choice for people, when they're faced with what they feel are insurmountable odds. Because I was so good at manifesting, I thought, well, it's just a matter of manifesting. And then as I continued to do the Merkaba work, what happened is I started getting a lot more information about what is going on in the reality now and what is coming. And then I naturally moved into what I call ascension work and teaching about 5D and, what does that mean and how can we be ahead of that curve,
Mm-hmm. So exactly, what does it mean to wake up in 5D? What does that look like?
Well, I will tell you that I think many of our listeners are already doing that, and that's why the phrase came to me, waking up in 5D. The idea of 5D is the equivalent of what a lot of teachers are calling the ascension, and my simplistic explanation is imagine what all the traditional teachers call heaven. We have our bodies are in good place. We're able to manifest instantaneously. We have a connection to God, so we feel and know that certain choices are just so aligned with God that we want one of those choices. So that's 5D. Right now, we are vacillating between high third dimension and fifth. And this is kind of fun to talk about because one of the ways for certain that you have already done this is when you have had the experience of putting something down. And I'm not talking about your car keys when you're tired and you come in late from a fun evening and you don't remember a thing about anything except crawling in bed. I'm talking about, you set something down that you're going to use later or you're not going to use for a couple of days, and maybe even you put it away in a drawer. And then you think later, oh, you know what, I need that. I shouldn't have put it away, or I need it. So you go to the spot where you left it, and it's not there. And you think to yourself, but I just put it there. And you're not foggy at all. You're real clear about the fact that you put it down. And you search, you maybe empty the drawer, empty your purse, whatever, not there. Now, the first time this happened to me, I was asking, where's my stuff? And I was always told it was in a higher dimension. And one of the things that as I said before, is I always wait and hang back with the information I'm getting until I can see it outside of me and have it confirmed outside of me. So one day, one of my kids came home, threw something in his backpack, set the backpack down in the living room, comes in the kitchen to tell me some big story. Gets all done with the story, and he says, here, I'll show you what I mean, Mom. And he walks back to the backpack, reaches in the backpack, and whatever it was that he was had just put there was gone. And he gives me this wild look, and he says, Mom, I just put it there. And I said, I know, I saw you do it. And then, without skipping a beat, because I was in my own home with my own son, and I didn't have, any barriers up, any walls, I just said, oh, honey, it's probably in a higher dimension. We'll just ask for come in the kitchen, finish your story, and then we'll look for it again. So that's what he did. And when we went back to his backpack, the missing item was right there where he had put it.
Wow.
And when I asked, well, how is that possible? What I was told is, Maureen, you're going into the fifth dimension when you put that stuff down. My son was at that high state of joy and happiness when he's walking in the house and put that stuff down, and then when he's kind of devolving into his other stuff, he's dropping back down to third. Then he goes back and looks for it, and it isn't. Then when I support him and say, oh, let's just ignore that and stay in our peaceful place, and he gets his support again in that high energy. And I'll give you another example that was really, really obvious in hindsight. It wasn't obvious. I mean, it was very obvious in the moment, but we didn't know what to make of it. And that is, I was sitting with a host on her front porch the morning after we completed a couple of series of workshops that I had done through her. And the workshops were extraordinarily high, and everyone had such amazing experiences, and we were all in this blissful state. And we were discussing how amazing it was. And then we dropped into, and while we're doing this, the birds are singing like crazy, almost like you're in a canary atrium or something, and there's 100 of them singing. And there was just this tweet, 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 tweet all over us. And even the host said, I have never heard the birds singing like that. That's so amazing. So then, we acknowledged that, and we're in a happy place. And then we kind of went into, some of the things that didn't work so well, maybe how the food was handled or whatever it was, the mundane things that we weren't 100% satisfied. And the singing stopped. And she said, the singing stopped. And I had to sit back, and I looked at her, and I said, we were in such a high state that the birds were resonating with us at that high level. Well, we drop down, there's nothing there for them that's a match, so they're not singing.
Yeah, wow. That's powerful.
So
and we can see that all the time in our lives, too, right?
And haven't you said something down and had it come up later?
Yeah.
Yeah, practically everybody has. When I ask this question in a room full of people, I can have, 200 or 300 people in the room, and I ask this question, and 90% of the hands go up. And they all agree. They don't know what happened to their stuff, and they don't know why it came back. And the truth of it is, it didn't go away and come back. We did. And that's the thing. If I'm doing it, so are you. So is everybody else. So that's proof positive that we've already been in 5D. And then what that also means is that we're not going to go to 5D and arrive there and stay there. We're going to vacillate up and back and up and back until we reach the place where we can maintain it all the time. And it reminds me, again, of my children, and those of you who have had children know this is true, that they'll do something very mature, and then they'll do something really stupid. And you say to yourself, but they were so mature, yesterday, why did they do this? And that's how children grow up. They make some forward steps and a few backward steps, and some forward steps and backward steps. And oh, by the way, so do we, spiritually. We make forward progress, and then we back up. And the powerful piece that comes with that is that once we get our arms around that, once we contemplate it, then we can own the fact that not only are we going to 5D, but that we've been there and that we can get back. So it's not so elusive, and it's also a fact that we've been there, and we're not so hard on ourselves when we slip back, because that's how everybody's doing it. Now, I'm not opposed to saying there will be a critical, an event, but I don't think the event is as critical as the major portion of humanity doing this gradual bump up. And then when we hit a critical mass, then everything can flip with grace and ease. Until that time, it's incumbent upon us to do everything we can to be proactive about becoming 5D and to always wake up in 5D. So one of the fun things I say to people is just when you go to bed at night, say, okay, I want to wake up in 5D and see how your day goes. It's quite amazing. Changes everything.
Wow, and we can all do that. And we can even ask that for while we're sleeping as well, can't we? And that way we can do more energy work, more healing work, more shifting and changing even while we're sleeping.
Yes, and we're more effective when we are about our day and about our sleep as well. That's absolutely true, yeah. So, that's one of the things that's like really amazing for people to just kind of get their arms around. And then the next thing to understand about 5D is to begin to comprehend that in 5D, we no longer have the not God choice. And what that means is in 3D, we're permitted to make what I will call choices that are not aligned with God. You know, when we choose to tell a lie, or when we choose to step out on our beloved, or when we choose to, take something that doesn't belong to us, we have choice. And sometimes people do this because they don't think there's enough. There's not enough love to tell the truth. There's not enough love to allow someone else to have their fair share, whatever it is. And then we shift, and we have so much love to give that not only do we have this place of deep love for ourselves, but we don't want anyone to not get what they need. So then all the arrangements we make with people, all the contracts we make with people are suddenly good for you and good for them. And I have a really cute story about a man that I worked with who had a really nice car, a hot car, but he was ready to sell and buy a new hot car for himself. And he was in his later years, but he had, earned the ability to have a car like that. And so he had a son who had just finished law school and was just starting out. And the son had his eye on his dad's car and figured that when his dad was ready to sell, he was the first taker. So, his father has in mind what he's going to sell this car for and use that as a down payment so he doesn't have to dip any of his whatever, And the son has another idea on what he should be paying for the car. So they have this conversation. And the next day, the father, we ask him, did you sell your car yet? And he said, yeah, I sold it. He's kind of rueful. And he's saying, I let it go for a song. And then we find out that he sold it to his son. And I said to him, yes, but look at how proud you would have been of him, of your son, if he'd made that deal with somebody else for that car. And first he looked shocked, then his eyes got big, and then he burst out laughing. And he said, it's true. I would want him to get a deal like that from somebody else. I just didn't want him to do it for me. And the difference is that in the future, we want everyone to get the best deal they can on all counts. So when you go in with a negotiation or when you go in with a arrangement where you're going to, mutually benefit, you say to that other person, I want this to be good for both of us. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to be happy until we're both happy. How powerful is that?
Very, and that's so much better than just me, but it's about everybody. It's a win-win for everyone, right?
Right. And, one time years ago when I was still working in the corporate world, I was being interviewed by a man and his daughter. And the man had founded the organization. It was a big national organization, and his daughter had been, kind of like the executive secretary. But now they were ready to hire a CEO, proper executive director, and president of the organization. And so I said to them, why is Barbara not applying for this job? And they said to me, well, Barbara answered and she said, well, I think they want someone with a little more exposure and more experience, in working with people at this level. And I looked at both of them and I said, I'm not interested in this job unless I'm her first choice. Mm. Because I knew I would be working with her. And why would I want to work with someone who hadn't chose me first, you see?
Right, yeah.
So that's the 5D energy. So this also means that there's no more karma. Mm-hmm. And that everyone can step out of the karma thing.
Yes,
and
finally.
Move into it. Finally. And it also means that you and I don't have any more karma. And it means that we can choose that for ourselves on a regular basis. That means the minute you notice that you've done something to hurt someone, whether it's, you've told them too frankly how you feel, or whether it's you inadvertently missed a meeting or an appointment with them, and you say, I am so sorry because I now realize how I let you down or how I hurt you, and I wouldn't want that to be true, and so I feel so bad about that, and I want you to hear that. I cherish you and I care about you. Mm-hmm. There's no more karma. It's simply ownership. It's kind of like if you push someone inadvertently. Let's say you're standing in line and there's a bunch of people behind you and you lose your balance and you kind of move into that person inadvertently. So immediately you say, oh, I'm so sorry, I wasn't paying attention, I was kind of sleepy, whatever it is. And that person understands that you didn't just attack them. And that's what happens. I mean, it works both ways. Both sides recognize that there was no ill will, so there's no need for karma. And the other reason why there's no more karma is because we are getting off that wheel of reincarnation, and we're getting off the wheel of acquiring information about life experiences. I often ask the students, what do you think is the purpose of life? What do you think the purpose of being in a body is all about? And a lot of people have a lot of different ideas, but I've distilled it down to one primary thing. We are separating from that which is inseparable in order to increase the experiences of existence. And if that's true, then we're really just expanding the database. Well, if that's true, and we are expanding the database, we have had enough hurting.
Yes.
So we don't need any more. And that's why there's no more karma.
And I love what you said about, we're stopping the cycle of reincarnation, because I remember thinking so many times in this lifetime, it's like, I think this is the last one. I don't think there's any more. I think this is it. I think I'm getting smarter. I think I'm learning faster. I think I'm getting the lessons more quickly. It's like, maybe this is it. But I have never heard anybody say that before.
Yeah, well, I've been saying it for 20 years. And when I first started saying it, and I shared it with some, close friends who were also students and were also working with, their own guru, and it was not received well. And and they said, how can this be? And I remember looking at them and saying, I don't know. I haven't really sorted it out, but what I do know is that it's true. And the no more karma really is important, because everybody can decide, okay, I'm on the no more karma routine. And what that does is it changes our energy sufficiently, because we're no longer carrying baggage from past lives. We're no longer having to solve or resolve stuff that is from another time. That's all unhooked. And that's also why I say that we are in a free-for-all, meaning we're jumping from a high-altitude plane. We haven't engaged our parachute yet, and we get to go whatever direction we want. And that's very powerful, too, because it gives us the ability that when we have experiences that we either don't want or don't like, we can announce to the universe, okay, I get that, I understand it, I'm choosing to be done with it. I'm done. I let it go. And the energy shifts. And it shifts in a big way, because now we can look at it in a very proactive way. What can I take from this that's beneficial? What is useful here? How can I benefit? When I was relying entirely on workshops for my income, if a workshop canceled, what I figured out is then that was a time for me to do one of three things. Either take a vacation time, put the workshop in some other location, maybe my host got sick or something, or go to someone else's event and be the student for a change. So whenever that happened, I never looked upon it as, you let me down, or you hurt me. Instead, I say, all right, this must be an opportunity for me to slow down and take a break. Or this might be an opportunity for me to go to this workshop that I really wanted to go to. Or maybe I just need to move it to a different venue and we can keep going. And when you have that information, and then you check in with your guidance, and that's another really big piece of this waking up in 5D, is the turning on or the activation of your higher self connection to such a degree that you can rely on it 100% of the time. Then you can ask, what am I to do? Am I to do this one, or this one? And maybe you even get no at all three, and then there's something else you have to discover. So that's one of the things that I began teaching is, how do you get a good higher self connection? And how do you move from relying on it sometimes to relying on it 100% of the time?
Yeah, that's powerful.
So that's a protocol that I developed, and that's outlined in the book, the new book, Waking Up in 5D. And it's an opportunity for all of us to realize that no matter how good we are at our connection to the divine, if we ever don't do what our guidance says, that means that we don't trust it.
Right.
And that we don't believe it. And we let our ego or our personality, run interference.
And we are going to do that from time to time, right? Because it's like we're not, like you said, we're not 100% sure. We don't 100% trust it yet, right? It's like we're still in that testing phase, I suppose, right?
Well, that's why I have developed a protocol that will take you to 100% accuracy.
Mm.
So the protocol is straightforward, and it only takes 6 weeks of committed effort, and it's pretty easy, and it's fun, and what we get from that is the opportunity to not trust your higher self, but to know. Now, what's the difference between trust and knowing? Well, we trust that our friend will show up for lunch because we made a date with them.
Right.
But we know the sun will rise in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So we move from that place of not having to question the higher self. Now, one of the things that I teach people after they get, the higher self practice and they do their 6 weeks of preparation is I teach them that you must do your due diligence. So, if you're thinking about going on a vacation and you feel like you should, but you're worried about having enough money if you take time off or, something like that, then you do your due diligence. What would it take for me to have enough money? You find out what the airline tickets would cost and what the trip would cost. And you put it on a piece of paper and you look at it and you analyze it. And you do all the research first. And then you ask your higher self. And why do you do that? Because the ego still wants to help solve problems in your life. The ego wants to help you have a good life. And your ego is in your corner. But the ego is using history. The ego is not using what's going on in real time. And there's a very powerful aha that I got regarding the awareness of the higher self. And that is, we've all been in a situation where we are watching a local TV station and a news announcer comes on and says something about a storm or a hailstorm or something, and you know that you need to go close the windows or move the car in the garage or whatever it is, but it's real-time update. There is an emergency of the weather, and here is here's what's happening, and we didn't know this was happening either. So in that quick emergency, we accept that the situation that we expected has changed. And that's what the higher self does. The higher self is giving us real-time information that establishes that the situation is normal except for this piece. And that has happened to me so many times where my higher self, where I was in a situation expecting to do one thing, and then my higher self came in and told me to do something else. And I validated it with the system that I've put out there so that you can actually double-check what comes in. And that's the second piece of this wonderful protocol, is that once you've established this piece, then when you get an intuitive piece of information or a piece of information from any non-physical source, you can then say, is this my higher self telling me blah, blah, blah? And only your higher self is allowed to answer yes. There's no intervention allowed. And that's very powerful. So then you can move to that place of always following your higher self because you've done your homework. You've done your practicing. You've done your research on what's going on. And then you can be in the place of always following your higher self. So that's another very powerful tool.
And since right now we're talking about the higher self and this program, let's take a moment to talk about your special offer, which includes that. So for those of you who are on the live page, you can just click on special offer. And those of you on the phone, you can go to awakentohappinessnow.com/Maureen13. And this special offer that Maureen has for us includes the higher self connection online course, as well as all sorts of different MP3s with it, 7 or 8 MP3s with it, right, Maureen?
Yes, and I want to be very clear. These MP3s are full-length guided meditations. These are not, me talking. These are guided meditations with background music that were created and have sold all over the world and have been translated into other languages. They're very powerful tools, particularly the 7 Archangels on the Wheel is a very upbeat, way to start to get to know the archangels and to invoke their help. And it's a very powerful tool because in the meditation I'll say, so now you can ask blah, blah, blah. And I give a category and I give an example. And so then right then and there, you're jumping in and you're participating, you're owning it. And the same with the Dancing in the River of Golden Opportunity. It's a huge energy field that was gifted in the Akashic Records. And it's this huge river that fills our house and our home. And it is very, very powerful. And the Unify meditation is not just, reuniting yourself with yourself. It's a soul retrieval program. And the soul retrieval program is a way to bring back lost parts from when you've had car accidents, when you've had a big trauma, somebody important died, or you got fired from a big job. Those big traumas, we break off pieces of ourselves. And this is a hugely powerful piece because that work you can do to heal yourself and get back parts of yourself so you actually have more energy, because as we break off parts of ourselves, it takes us a while to kind of fill in that space. And if we bring back our original piece, and we wash it in ceremony and we integrate it with ceremony, what happens is we become more the divine soul we came in with. And so then we don't have all those encumbrances, all those, pieces that we're missing. And then the Crystal Elohim is a very powerful guided meditation that takes you through your connection with the Elohim, which are the beings that were at source of creation. So they stand on the threshold of the beginning of creation and the void, or the connection with God and outer manifestation. And there are protocols in those actual guided meditation where you're, again, calling out your part. And in so doing, you anchor into you divine blueprint, divine DNA blueprint stuff that helps you connect with other versions of yourself, higher versions of yourself that may have mastery that you didn't have. It's a very, very profound meditation. And then the last piece, besides the higher connection, is the Archangel meditation. And this is a wonderful meditation, especially for those of you who like to have the biblical citations, because I take people through every one of the primary archangels and then with invocations where you will repeat after me or your version of that. And also it gives people their source, their spiritual source of where this information came from. And it's not from one particular church or another. It's from the mystic energy and the mystic tradition. Some of it's from the Christian Bible, but not all of it. For example, Archangel Michael is in 7 of the world's traditions. It's in the Muslim religion. It's in the Christian religion. It's in Catholicism. So those are very powerful tools. And then the Higher Self Connection course is a 4-week course that you download bit by bit and take every one of the steps, multiple guided meditations from me, taking you through the process so you don't have to do it by yourself. You actually have my voice calling it out for you, giving you instruction, telling you how to do it, and lots of examples on what other people have done so you know what you're looking for. Very wonderful stuff. This is an amazing opportunity for people to get all these. None of these have been discounted like this, in this way. So it's a pretty substantial 5D opportunity to amp up your work. And then, if you want, you can also order the book, Waking Up in 5D. It is available as a pre-order. It's going to be released in September. And anybody who buys it in advance will be able to be the first ones to get it. In my experience, when I order pre-order books, that they're available but they haven't shipped yet, is I always get them before the ship date. So you'd say they're going to ship on the 10th or the 12th of September. I'll end up having it in August. And then I think that's awesome, because then you don't have to wait for everybody else to get your copy.
Right.
So
yes, I love it. Thank you. Yeah, and so please do take a look at this special offer. Again, like Maureen was saying, there's all these beautiful guided meditations as well as the 4-week online course to connect with your higher self. And not just connect with your higher self, but really get the answers that you need and know that you're getting the information from your higher self. So it's without any, it's not a trust issue, it's a knowing, and then you can start to build that relationship with your higher self in order to manifest whatever it is that you desire in your life. So I had a question on or a comment on the Q&A a while ago from Shannon, and she was saying, so inspirational hearing you speak about choosing to pay off your debt by manifesting. I so want to do the same thing. And then she wrote in again about, can she give me an example of that? And I'm not sure what you mean by that, Shannon. So if you can write in what example you're looking for.
I understand exactly what she means, and I'll share with you. And there were a number of things that I did, and I'll run through maybe 3 or 4 of them, and Shannon, you can do all of them. Number 1, I actually did a visualization where I would have my mail. You get mail from your mailbox, and you see there's a bunch of envelopes. But the ones that had like a yellow slip inside meant either your checking account was overdrawn or you were behind on a bill. So initially I was in so much trouble financially because of this thing that went down with my family that I was late. I was robbing from Peter to pay Paul, and I was juggling and all of that. So the first thing I did is a visualization that I'd go through my mail, and there were none of those colored slips that would, basically tell me I'm in trouble. That was one of the things I did. Another thing I did is I put a certain amount of money in a special envelope in my purse, and I put myself on a budget. So when I got paid, my regular pay, I allocated money for everything, budget, groceries, and gas, and whatever. And then little by little, I would work around that, and any money I had left over at the end of those times, I would put in a special envelope till I had $100. Once I had $100, I put it in a $100 bill. Then when I was in the store or I was out and about and I saw something that I really wanted, I had that $100. And that was my comfort threshold. So I was not comfortable ever spending more than $100 on something without thinking about it, without walking away and then deciding, okay, I want this. I'm going to spend the money on it. So that was my threshold. And it's a funny thing. When you have $100, and you can spend it on either an article of clothing or a piece of equipment that you need, what happens is sometimes you'll look at that and you go, you know what, I've been doing pretty good without that. I think I'm going to skip that one. And this is a difference in energy, and I'll tell you why it switches the energy. People who have resources pay their bills whenever they want. People who are living from check to check or pay to pay only pay their bills when they have money, and they don't have money all the time. So that's one energy. The other energy is when you look at something that you really admire and really like, and you're broke or you're behind, you actually tell yourself, I can't afford that. Even if you don't say it out loud, I can't get that. That's all well and good. But when you have lots of money, you don't want everything you can have. You'll look at something, you'll say, you know what, that's a gorgeous black skirt, and I really like it. You try it on, it's a good fit. And then you think to yourself, I've already got enough black skirts, I don't need this. You don't even think twice about the fact of whether you can afford it or not. You're just able to clearly see its value or not. And what happens is the people who can't have everything they want everything they cannot have. The people who have resources don't want everything they can have. So the difference is substantial. So now you're in a place where you always can have if you want. So that changes the energy. Now you're sending the energy to the universe. I can have anything I want. And initially it's under that $100 threshold, but it comes out the other way and produces an outcome. And then finally you pick, and this is a key piece of that book, Be a Genie. You pick someone that you would have a likely conversation with after you're out of this, I'll call it dark spot. And that conversation is something like this. There were some scary moments, but it wasn't that hard. Now, initially, when you hear yourself telling this person, they're going to say, yeah, and I'm so impressed that you pulled that off. I don't know that I could do that. And it means I'm so impressed to see that you did that. Now, when you hear your friend who loves you and cherishes you, or your parents or your sibling or your spouse say how proud they are of you, that energy shifts inside of you, and you own it in a way that you haven't let yourself own it before. And it's the real-time conversation that's well after the outcome you desire. I call it the after event, that actually pulls it in from consciousness, because if you're already experiencing it over here, then it must be true. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I teach people is you can have more than one version of the reality as real right now. And we do it all the time when we go to the movies. We suspend disbelief at the movies. We decide to be part of what's ever going on the screen. If a joke's being told, we're laughing with them. If something scary happens, we jump. And so we've suspended disbelief that we're in the movie theater, and instead we're in the scene. So the mind cannot tell the difference between an imagined outcome and a real one. So I tell people, don't resist, because what you resist persists. Instead of resisting that you don't have enough right now, instead say, well, I'm grateful for what I do have. I'm grateful that I can pay on time and try and get this bill paid off. And on the other hand, you see yourself in a place where you have enough resources that you can decide, I don't really want this. I could have it if I wanted, but I don't think I do. And the cool thing is, as we create this outcome where we're hearing that conversation, I've actually gone so far as to prove it through sacred geometry. So if you have any interest in numbers or any interest in sacred geometry, that's the second half of the book, and it's called The Proofs. And it takes people through the sacred geometry and shows why this system works. And you're literally allowing two versions of the reality. The one you're in, where you're offering no resistance. You know, it's okay. I'm not going to resist it. It's what it is. And over here, oh, this feels really yummy. It feels really good. And the universe feels the vibration of both of them. No resistance on either one. And the one that has the bigger energy is the one that gets produced, because the universe gives you more of what you're putting your energy in. So I tell people, when you feel bad, when you know, and like the lady who called in and asked how to do it, there's one final piece. If you catch yourself thinking dark things or worry thoughts, maybe let's say you don't like your job and you dislike your boss, but it pays well, has good vacation schedule, maybe even a good medical plan. So that's why you stay. So instead of saying, you know, I can't stand my boss, but I'm stuck because I can't get this and this and this, these three things that I really like. So instead, if you say, you know, I dislike my boss, but I love these three things, and you anchor the energy there, then the universe is going to give you more of that, because that's where you're putting your attention on. And there's a scientific example of that, and it's called noise-canceling headphones. So you're literally taking the one negative and antidoting it with something of the same value. So you're not saying, I hate my boss, but I love my children. You're saying, you know, this job sucks because of that guy, but I've got this and this and this. And what that does is tells you, oh, you know, she likes this, this, and this. And she's not putting any resistance on the other things. So you don't judge yourself for having that dark thought. Instead, you antidote it with 2 or 3 positives immediately when you notice. Because, frankly, I have never been able to stop a negative thought before I've thought it. And no one else can either, by the way.
Yeah.
So you catch yourself thinking a negative thought, and then you use that as a cue or a reminder to say, oh, well, now I got to come up with 3 positives. And they have to be in the same vibrational space as the negative. It is so amazing. And the most important thing that I learned in that kind of an energy is this whole idea that I could produce an outcome by antidoting the negative. And I'll give you an example. Years ago, probably more than 20 years ago, I was getting off of a plane. And I had put myself on a very tight schedule because I stayed extra days on the West Coast because I wanted to see someone. And the only way I was going to do that is if I stayed those extra days and saw them on the tail end of that. And then flew home to Wisconsin at the time, and then flew to the East Coast that same day on a later flight. So I literally had just a few hours to turn myself around. And I accepted that as appropriate and necessary to achieve the outcome that I wanted. So I fly all night, and I arrive in my home city about 8 a.m., taking a connection from Chicago to this town in Wisconsin. Then I get off the plane, and I see a lady who knows me, one of the airline employees. I fly every week, so they call me by name. And she says, "How are you doing?" Now, without thinking, I repeated a phrase that I used to use to explain when you're having a bad day. And you can imagine what I might have used. I don't use that anymore, so I won't say it on the air. But what I will say is, after I said that, I was so mortified that I followed with my positives, right? Mm-hmm. And I said to her, "But actually, I'm having a day of heaven on earth because I'm flying with United." And I, antidoted it right away out loud with her, and she nodded, and away we went. Well, I came home, and there was an inch of water on my basement floor. The water was still running. I had a roommate who, for whatever reason, could hear the water running all night long, but never bothered to call me to say, "I don't know what's going on. There's no faucet that's on." So I first have to, scramble, running through the house, figuring out where the water's coming from, how is it getting on the basement floor. Then I called my neighbor, who is much more knowledgeable about how to take care of a house than me, and he comes over, and we determined that there's a hole in one of the water lines, and it's literally leaking water through the walls and up over the top of one of the walls in the laundry room. We call the plumber. The plumber comes on time. The plumber only charges me $120. He asks me where to drill the hole. I ask my higher self, go here. He goes slightly different from there. Where I picked was exactly where the problem was, but he still only had 2 small holes because he could see where the leak was right away. And then my neighbor said, "I'll watch the plumber while you finish getting ready." I called the airline, and they said, well, they can put me on a later flight, but they couldn't put me on a flight tomorrow because that flight was oversold. So I took the later flight. They gave me a discount and said, "We're not going to charge you the change fee because we know you're in an emergency, so we're going to waive that for you." And so I'm feeling pretty fortunate. And then the neighbor says, "I'll come over later with fans, dry out the walls." I still had to go to the post office to do a mailing and the bank to make a deposit. I got done with all those errands, and I'm on my way home, and I think to myself, I only needed another hour. I'm actually close to being ready right now. I walk in my house, and the phone is ringing. The landline phone is ringing, and it's a real person from United saying, "Our flights are running so late that you're going to miss your connection into the East Coast. Is there any way that you can take the earlier flight into Chicago, which is now running an hour late?" And
Perfect.
I said, "Actually, yes. My suitcase is packed. It's in the car. I'm 10 minutes from the airport. This is doable." I get in my seat on the plane, and I think to myself, what an amazing adventure I've just been on. And I asked, what caused all that? How did I do that? And I was immediately told, "You asked for a day of heaven on earth." And I thought, whoa, I'm going to do that again when I have a busy, funky day. And I did. The second time I did it, it occurred to me I could ask for that every day. And so can you. So the way I say it is I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth for myself and everyone I'm coming in contact with. And that literally changes the energy to 5D, just like that.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that story. That was so powerful. Both that story in showing us with concrete examples of what is truly possible for all of us by just asking for heaven on earth, for ourselves and for everybody else that we happen to come across during the day. And look how magical it turned out to be. Like, oh my goodness, wow, that's amazing. Thank you.
It is such a pleasure to share these things because I have had the good fortune of having wacky stuff happen and then given the solution right then and there. How do I deal with it? And how do I do it? Now, as far as the 5D stuff, one of the things that I learned is that we could be proactively bringing in an energy by the way we talk. So I made a list of all the words we use that anchor us into polarity. And if we're not anchored into polarity, it's easier to slide into 5D. If we're anchored into polarity, it's harder to even know that 5D exists.
Right.
So one of the things I did is I took all the rules of the way we talk. So, for example, I'm looking for the right solution. Well, that must mean there's a wrong solution. What if we said, I'm looking for the ideal one for me? Another one is, I can't do that, I can't see that, whatever. Instead, to say, I choose to know, and then fill out the sentence. So you're immediately moving into a broader sense of possibilities. Another thing is, I never say, that's not right, because that labels whatever I'm examining or whatever I'm talking about, whether it's someone's workshop or my event or the way things went down, as polarized, not right. What if I said, that's just not a match for me. I can do better. I need to, fix this. I need to address this. And what happens is it opens up the consciousness to possibilities we had not thought of. And finally, there's way more in that list than what I'm giving you, but one of the most important questions to ask, instead of who did this or why did this happen or when is this going to get better, you say, what's going on? And the what's going on is a very powerful, open-ended question that as we train ourselves to be more open to possibilities, we actually get information. And in fact, that's how I knew that I had been in a higher dimension when I was setting my things down. Because that particular time when I got that information, instead of saying, where did my stuff go, which is very narrow, where did it go, so I can go get it and bring it back, instead I said, what's going on? And that's when my guide said, well, Maureen, you were in a higher dimension when you put it down. And if that's true, then all I have to do is shift my awareness, my energy, my focus into a more peaceful place. And then everything comes together. So it's quite amazing that even our language would help us, proactively choosing to eliminate some words from our language. And another one that is a little more obscure is help. Because when you use the word help, it means there's something wrong. Whereas when you use assist, it doesn't mean that at all. It means, join me in this production or this effort, and that will make a difference for me. So even the word help could be upgraded to the word assist. So the book is full of lots of practical stuff like that, and that's really why I like to emphasize this whole idea of being the practical mystic, because I have literally done practically everything any one of your listeners have done. I've been out there, I've been close to bankruptcy, I've been close to the edge, and each time I walk away, and I'm able because I claim that. And one time in my life there was a huge drama. That's the only way I want to describe it. That if it came down the way it looked like it was coming down, I would be bankrupt and out of business. And I remember in that moment, I said to the Ascended Master El Morya, I thought I'd never have to file bankruptcy because of my commitment to manifest it. So, but it looks like I am out of business here. But I have my health, and I can start over if I have to. And then I said, and if there is a solution, I need to know about it by tomorrow morning. And I woke up the next morning and I had the solution. And it was completely unexpected, completely creative, not something a person would think of. And everything fell into place, and my program moved forward without skipping a beat. And even I was surprised and delighted. So one of the things you can do, as and this again is directed at that listener, when you have this strong commitment, and you do, otherwise you wouldn't have asked that question, whenever you get close to what you think is failure, You can say, look, I thought I was supposed to, blah, blah, blah. But, it looks like I'm at the end of the line here. So if there's a solution, I need to know, and I need to know it right away. And thank you. And I also call in El Moria because he's the Ascended Master that serves on the ray of the will of God. And his mastery helps us with our own mastery so that we can be fully available to our victory. And that makes a big difference because it means I'm willing to show up. I just don't know how to fix it. And, it's a very powerful thing. There's a wonderful book called Secrets of Six-Figure Women. And that book, it's not a spiritual book. It's a business book. But what I found in that book is Barbara Stanny identified for each of these people what I will call divinity tests, where they were sure everything was falling apart. But they let go. But at the same time, they said, look, I really want to do this. But, if the powers that be are preventing it from happening, I'm going to live with that. I'm going to be okay with that. And something shifts and everything opens up. It's quite amazing. So the power of letting go with absolute sincerity. Look, I wanted to do this. I thought I was supposed to do this. But if I have to let go, then I let go with grace and ease, and I totally unhook. Then what comes back to you is authentically yours.
Yeah. Yes, powerful. Thank you.
That's very 5D.
Yeah, very 5D, and it's very. I don't know it's like we're collaborating, with our higher self, with our guides and angels, with our team together, and it's when we get out of our own way that we can receive that wisdom, receive those energies, and those solutions, right?
Absolutely. And I love your word collaborate because it's absolutely true. We do not have to do this journey all by ourselves. And the cool thing is you don't even have to believe in this stuff to try it or to use it. All you have to do is say, all right, this woman seems pretty confident that that's how things work. Let me give it a shot. And if my life improves, great. For a fact. And I truly believe that anybody who says even that in terms of their own prayer work and their own commitment internally, they're going to see that energy shift. And then they're going to be recognizing that they are getting help from the other side. But the thing is, that help from the other side, that collaboration, does not occur without our choosing it because we are in a free will zone. So as close as those beings of light are to assisting us, they need us to ask. They need us to say, look, I'd like some help here. And please don't wait till you're down and out and totally desperate. Why not get that help early before it gets to desperate?
Yeah, and you were mentioning El Moria, and he's one of my guides that I turn to whenever I go to meditate and so on, but I've never really asked him specifically for questions or things, so it's like I'm going to open up that communication channel and
open up that conversation. That's right.
Yeah.
Because what one of the things that Amoria said in his channeled messages through one of his messengers is, I don't care how many times you fall down. I want to know if you're going to get back up.
Ooh, I got chills. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, one of my bywords, because one time when I was desperate to the nth degree, I had zero money, I had an end to the money, I had no backup plan, no backup person behind me, and I could see like this whole system that I had in place just coming to a big screeching halt. And I went into what I would call a rant, a little emotional reaction kind of thing. And I remember saying, what'll I do? What'll I do? What'll I do? What'll I do? And it was just kept getting higher and higher in my thought. And then this booming voice comes through and says, just show up. And I thought, what does that mean? And I realized at the time I was looking for a job, and I had been looking, but what this told me was, make a space and go be full-time looking for a job and looking for to build your business. And it was, the second last job I had before I went full-time in this. And I literally changed out one of my son's bedrooms. He'd already left home, and turned it into an office, and showed up every morning at 8 o'clock, only took an hour for lunch, and worked every day till either 4 or 5 o'clock, even though the garden was screaming or whatever else needed to do that I could have done because nobody was watching me. Instead, I chose to be very focused on my own business and also the job search. And it changed my energy because I was honoring what was important to me. Instead of, being aware of how, I'm unemployed, there's not enough going on. Instead, I was in a very proactive stance. I'm looking for a job, and that's my full-time job. And just showing up was a huge message. So for those of you who are, in a tough spot, the message that the Ascended Masters give us is not only to show up, but to ask for their help and to learn about them and to learn about how they can be of assistance to you and how their mastery is available to you if you ask. So it's kind of like, someone co-signing for you on a loan. Their mantle can overshadow you, you step up, you do great, and then everybody wins. Everybody wins.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And they are here to assist us. They are here to support us, not just with their energies, but with their wisdom and their love as well. And they're just waiting for us to call out to them and ask, right? Ask for their assistance. So I know, Maureen, that you have to go in a few moments, but before we go, I just was wondering if you could just share any last words of wisdom, especially about connecting with your higher self, not trusting, but working with your higher self together, and how important that is.
Yes. I would be very happy to share with you that I have been following my higher self 100% since 1995. And one day I was giving a lecture, and I had a big group full of people, and I announced, I've been following my higher self since this time. And the voice in my head said, no, you haven't. And now I'm having two conversations, one with the audience and one with my guides that are arguing with me, telling me, no, you haven't. And, that's pretty powerful when you actually ask to be told when you're not telling the truth, which I have done. And so now I'm in this horrible place. Now what do I do? And so at the same time as I'm giving the lecture, I asked, well, what is this about? And I was told, well, when you told your boyfriend that you thought he was stepping out on you, and he said, no, that's not true, you believed him instead of your higher self. Mm. And I thought, oh man, now I got to write him a letter. So I sent him a note. He was, he was at a job site, so he was not, living with me, even though we were living together at the time. And I said, I hate to be the person that's disagreeable, but I've had this conversation with my higher self, and I believed you because I love you, and I wanted to believe your words. But my higher self is telling me otherwise. And I was called on the carpet by my higher self, and I'm terribly sorry, but now I'm telling you, I know this is so, and I'm going to believe my higher self. And the boyfriend at the time wrote back and said, I forgot who I was dealing with. And,
wow.
It was a very amicable breakup. There wasn't any big problem or anything like that. And this person was a wonderful, wonderful partner for me at the time. And I have nothing but love and gratitude. And it's kind of cool because he was there to support me as I moved through certain things. And what a wake-up call. So how do you have that connection? You actually go through a process where you identify in a guided meditation, and I don't know if we have time for that right now, but if your listeners are still on board for another few minutes, I will take you through a quick guided meditation. This is in real time. There's also a recorded version of it, so if you have to go or you can't stay for this piece, there will also be, not only in this recording, but there's also a separate recording if you decide to get the package. And you close your eyes for a moment in your heart space. And again, feel that unconditional love and allow yourself to say that energy, I love you, and say another word like heart love or heart connection every time you do it so you could bring it up on command. And then see a big channel like a hydrant from a water hydrant that is used to put out fires. And that energy then goes all the way up past your third eye, your crown chakra, all the way up to your the portal of the 8th chakra where you can open to your higher self, and your higher self comes in and you say to your higher self, all right, I'm convinced that this is possible. I'm willing to give it a shot. Now I need signals for yes. So higher self, give me a symbol or signal for yes. What does yes look like, feel like, taste like, sound like? Maybe you get a sensation in your body. Maybe you see a color. Maybe you have an itchy ear. But yes is going to be a signal from your higher self. Thank you. Higher self, give me my symbol or signal for no. Maybe it's the opposite. If you had a thumbs up, you're going to get a thumbs down. Some other signal. It could be a color. It could be a shape. It could be the word no. Thank you. Higher self, give me my symbol or signal for neutral. What does that look like? Maybe it's the absence of the other two. Maybe it's just like a vacancy, or maybe it's that column you feel really powerfully in the middle of your body. Maybe it's a flat taste in your mouth. Thank you. Now, from this point forward, for the next 6 weeks, you must ask your higher self unimportant, insignificant questions that you are willing to do either way. So if you have 2 vegetables in your refrigerator and you're looking at what to have for dinner, you ask higher self, should I have the green beans? No. Higher self, should I have the broccoli? Yes. So that's what you cook. And you ask this about everything that you can. Higher self, is it my highest and best good to wear the brown shoes today? No. The black shoes today? No. The white shoes? Yes. So you wear, you put on, you act out. Do I take this route to work? No. This route? Yes. Over time, over that 6 weeks period, stuff will start to happen that reinforce what your higher self gave you. Now, the reason this protocol works is a number of reasons. Number one, you're not allowed to ask about anything important. So you're not worried. Your ego's not in the middle of it. Number two, you only ask about stuff you're willing to do. So you're not challenging your own belief system. And number three, it works because you will get confirmation in hindsight. So you're not allowed to keep score. But in hindsight, it's clear. So you ask your higher self, should we meet at this restaurant for dinner tonight? No. Tomorrow night? Yes. So you go there tomorrow night and you discover, well, last night they were closed. That's their day off. All kinds of wonderful confirmations. You get told to take a certain route, and the route you would normally take had a traffic jam. So these things come in hindsight. Now your ego has history that shows you that your higher self is just like the weatherman who comes in at the last minute and tells you there's a shift, there's a change in the reality, situation normal except for this. And so your consciousness can accept that your higher self has got the best answer. So over the course of the 6 weeks, 2 things happen. Number one, you're developing a history with your higher self. Number two, the higher self can see that the ego can see that the higher self has got the best answer. And since the ego wants you to be happy, it's going to go with the higher self as the highest and best choice for you. And finally, you've developed the communication between your higher self. So at the end of that 6 weeks, you have brand new DNA, and you've anchored that energy. And at that point, then you move into open-ended questions like, what is the best thing for me to do today? Rather than, is it my highest and best good to make this phone call at this time? So initially you start with yes and no, and then after you graduate at 6 weeks, then you can move into other things. And what happens after the 6 weeks, when you've been asking 30 or 40 times a day about unimportant stuff that you truly don't care about, you will know the voice of your higher self, whether it comes in as a color, whether it comes in as a feeling, whether it comes in as a taste in the mouth. And it becomes trustworthy because you've spent so much time making sure that that's what that is. And there's a lot of more information, but that's like the nutshell of it. So even if you don't buy the protocol or the package that we have, you now have a core piece. And I highly recommend that you at least get the book that has that information in it so that you can double check all the other, there's like 7 little protocols that you follow. But all of it is based upon these simple questions about the higher self and how to practice so that the higher self connection is clear to you.
Beautiful. Thank you. What a gift. And I love asking these questions and getting the symbols or the sign of the yes and the no and the neutral, and then using it for 6 weeks for unimportant questions. That might be a little bit difficult, but it'll take some practice, right?
Yes, it does. It's very interesting. And, it's funny because sometimes people say to me, oh, well, I have a good connection. I don't really need to do the practice. And I'll say to them, well, even the most successful golfers, pianists, violinists, whatever, they still take lessons.
Yes.
So if you're not at that level, why don't you take and put yourself through a set of lessons? That's one thing, and we can always improve our connection. Even the people who study with me periodically decide that they're going to allow themselves to go through another round of upping their game. And it makes a huge difference because each time it gets easier and easier. Nowadays when I ask my higher self something, I know the answer right away. Some of the students, wait, I'm not ready yet. I haven't checked in. So give yourself that gift of a 6 weeks practice that will be with you for the rest of your life. And I have been told to get out of situations or to move into certain behaviors that have saved my life. And I'll save that for another time, but trust me, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today if it weren't for my higher self.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. And yes, we will definitely have to have you back again because this conversation today was so enlightening, so informative. I mean, there's so much information and wisdom that you shared with us today that I should have told everyone, take notes, but they'll have to go back and listen again to the recording because there's just wonderful, wonderful information and teachings, practical information and teachings that we can start to implement in our day-to-day lives. So I'm so grateful for this call today. Maureen, thank you so much. And for all of you listeners, please do take a look at the special offer that's available from Maureen. It's at awakentohappinessnow.com/Maureen13. And I value the connection with the higher self. I value that communication, that relationship, that collaboration, because I know for myself, it works. It works. But it is about building that relationship and having that communication flowing constantly, not just, when you're in dire need, but, every day if you can. So start with the basics. But yes, please do take a look at the special offer where you have the 6-week, online course, and as well as those beautiful guided meditations as well. Wow. Thank you so much, Maureen. Like I said, I know we've gone over time and you have to run to another appointment, but thank you so much. This has been absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to present to your audience and to give my audience another dose of this wonderful material. I'm delighted to be part of your program, and I look forward to working with you again.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you so much for the questions and the comments. And please, yes, like I said, go back and listen to this again. And I so appreciate all of you. I love you. And thank you for being here on this journey with me, even while I'm here visiting in Boston. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Continue to live your life filled with joy, peace, love, abundance, and happiness. Sending you all much love and blessings. Bye for now.